All right, let's start chapter 26. Chapter 26 deals with the urinary system. So let's take a look at so this is looking at the entire urinary system, which comprises of the kidneys, the ureter, urinary bladder, and urethra. So let's look at the functions of the urinary system. One is it controls our body's water balance. So in doing that, it's going to remove excess water. It also controls our electrolyte balance. In doing so, it's going to remove excess ions out of our blood. It's also going to eliminate toxins and also metabolic waste. And those three parts the first three functions of the urinary system are going to make urine. Now the next parts are not going to make urine. So next is it controls the rate of red blood cell formation by secreting erythropoietin. If you remember, erythropoietin will go to our red bone marrow and cause our red bone marrow to make more red blood cells, which increase the oxygen levels in our blood. It also regulates our blood pressure by secreting a hormone called renin, which ultimate effect is to increase our blood pressure. And we'll talk about that later on this chapter. It also activates vitamin D. Vitamin D is necessary for calcium ion absorptions in the small intestine. And lastly, it's as well as the liver, it partakes in what is known as gluconeogenesis. And this is a process of forming glucose from non-carbohydrates. This is done during prolonged fasting is when that will occur. So let's take a look at so most of these functions are actually done by the kidney. The ureter transports urine to the urinary bladder, which will store that urine and then move that urine out of there through the urethra. So let's look at the anatomy of the kidney, because that's the most important organ in this urinary system. So let's look at external anatomy first. The first is a renal hilum. And so that's this area right here. And this is a concave curvature in the medial side of the kidney. And it essentially is the opening of the kidney. And so this is where blood vessels, the ureter, nerves also enter into the kidney. Next is the renal sinus. Now, I know it's hard to see because all this stuff is there, but if you remove all these blood vessels and tubes there would be a cavity inside the kidney in this area. And so that is known as a renal sinus, and that's what this is trying to show there. If we look at a real kidney, there would be adipose tissue in that area. So this is a cavity within the kidney, is the renal sinus. It is filled with adipose tissue and connective tissue. So let's look at supporting structures. Next is the renal capsule. The renal capsule is right here. This is a fibrous, transparent capsule that surrounds the kidneys. Now, if we go back to a previous picture here, you can see the kidneys there, and then around the kidneys is a bunch of adipose. And this is known as the adipose capsule. And so this is a fatty mass that attaches to the kidneys. It cushions the kidneys and also helps maintain the kidney's position in the body. Outside of that is what is known as the renal fascia. And this is the outer layer of dense fibrous connective tissue. And it prevents infections from spreading to the kidney, and that's showing right there, that renal fascia. All right, let's go back to the previous picture. So now let's look at internal anatomy of the kidney. So first is the renal cortex. And this area right here is the renal cortex, the outer portion of the kidney. Inside of that, in this area here, kind of between my two fingers, is the renal medulla. So that is the inner portion of the kidney. And inside the medulla, we see these structures here called renal pyramids. All right, so these are conical masses of tissues, and they end in renal papilla, which are trying to show here and here and here are the renal papilla. All right, now you can see like these little holes there in the renal papilla, and those contain urine. So those are the ends of what are known as collecting ducts. So there's collecting ducts within the pyramids, which are tubes that have urine in them that are transporting urine out that way. Next are renal columns. These are the renal columns. They are between the pyramids. All right, they separate the pyramids. All right. Next is the renal pelvis. So here is the ureter, and when the ureter comes into the kidney in this area, try to ignore the blood vessels there. That is the renal pelvis in this area. So this is an enlarged opening to the ureter. All right. And it is continuous with the ureter, so urine will move from here into there. And coming off of the renal pelvis are these smaller tubes called calyces. And so we're going to make urine out here, and then through those collecting ducts, urine is going to move into a calyx, and then to the renal pelvis, and then into the ureter.